my good friends growing up, his dad was always trying to teach myself and our friends life skills. So every once in a while, when we were over at my friend's house, he would get us all together, sit down, and he would share some life advice with us. One of these times, he wanted to teach us about investing and how to carefully consider what would be a good investment of our wealth as we got older. And whenever he gave these little times of teaching, he always had a story from his life that he would base his wisdom for us in. And the story he told us this time was about how in the early 1980s, he was a young guy and he was presented with an opportunity to invest in a home computer company called Apple. Someone in his life told him that buying stocks in this company would be a good idea. Except as he heard this person's explanation of why this would be a good idea, he thought, no, this is a bad idea. No one except for scientists or nerds use computers. And the idea of having computers in your home sounded crazy. And so he passed on this investment. And this was one of his biggest regrets, not carefully considering why investing in Apple's computers would be worth it. When it comes to leadership development, the first place we have to start is asking, is this a wise investment for our churches? Now, I'm going to oversimplify this, so please be gracious to me. But when it comes to investing in leadership development in our churches, there's often two camps when it comes to deciding if this is a worthwhile investment. One side often wants to go all in. You see, this side often looks at this investment as one of the most important things that you and your church could do. They look at it and say, as you invest resources and time and energy into this, it will pay off in the long run big time. And maybe you have some urgency around this. Maybe you're in this camp and you think we need to do this because as you look around your church at various leadership positions, as you look around your church, you see that your leadership bench is quite short. Or maybe you look at your leadership teams and you look at places like eldership teams or your council, and you know that people are going to have to rotate off this year because their term is up, and you think about replacing them. And as you look at your church, there's not a whole lot of leaders out there that can step into this crucial position. And so you're pushing to make this leadership investment. You want to develop leaders. The other side is not as convinced. Maybe in your church experience, you've never really been a part of a church that has made an investment in leaders like this before. And in your experience, as you think back to your church story, the church has always been fine. Yeah, the bench is short, but God always makes it work out. Yeah, there's some issues in our church, but this one of leadership investment in developing future leaders isn't one of the priority ones for us. Now let me lay my cards on the table for you. You probably won't be surprised by what I'm about to say. At least you shouldn't be. I am all for your church making this investment. In fact, I think this is one of the best things that you can invest in as a church and as a leadership team. Let me quickly share with you why I think this isn't just an important thing for you to do, but why I think biblically it is a must for you to do as churches. So let me give you 3 reasons why this is something that you should invest in. Number 1, investing in leadership development is the biblical pattern we see over and over again. Jesus, during his earthly ministry, what did he invest in? Leaders. He invested deeply in developing disciples to be leaders in the early church. He made a significant amount of investment in teaching, sending, and training the 12 disciples during his earthly ministry. In fact, only 17 times do we see Jesus ministering to large crowds in the Gospels. 46 times, though, we see him training his disciples. Jesus seldomly did ministry by himself. He always had a group of disciples around him, watching and learning from him. Plain and simple, Jesus was a leader developing machine. We see this investment in the New Testament when it comes to Paul too. Paul invested in multiple leaders throughout his ministry. Timothy and Titus are 2 prime examples of Paul investing in younger leaders to see them grow for the sake of the church in Ephesus and in Crete. So, number 1, it's biblical. Number 2, the days of pre-made leaders are over. The church in Canada is experiencing the first few waves of a coming leadership tsunami. For so long, the church has reaped the rewards of a culture where church young adults often went to Bible school right out of high school for a year or two of theological training before moving on to university or a career. And these 1 or 2 years of Bible school gave young people a good theological foundation, character development, and spiritual gift development in their lives. People who had this foundation were natural fits to move into leadership roles in the church. Now, these days are largely over. People in our churches do not go to Bible school anymore for 1 or 2 years, mostly. And because of this, they do not have the theological foundations, the character development, or the gift development to come and move into our churches and serve right away as leaders, meeting the critical need that our churches have. The third reason why this is a worthwhile investment is because healthy churches require healthy leaders. I think all of us want to lead or be a part of a healthy church. But healthy churches are connected to healthy leaders. There are people in our congregations who most likely have leadership gifts. They use their leadership gifts in their career, in their community, as coaches on sports teams, or helping in various projects. And so we naturally look at them as surefire fits to step into leadership positions in our church and lead our churches ahead. But I just want to caution us that it's not that simple. The question isn't, do these people have leadership gifts? The question is, are they healthy leaders? Do they have a theological foundation that empowers their leadership within the church? Do they have character that is godly and Christ-like? You know, when it comes to leadership in the church, the Bible isn't focused on gifting, but it's focused on character. What about these people's leadership philosophy? Biblically speaking, leaders in the church are marked by servant leadership. What one of these three things might be missing from these potential leaders' lives? If one of them is missing, it tends to lead to unhealthy leadership in the church, and that always affects the greater church's health. We want healthy leaders. See, here's the reality. What we are talking about is an investment, meaning as we invest in developing leaders, it's going to cost our churches something. It will cost our churches money. Investing in leaders means investing in resources to help developing. Investing in leaders will also cost time. What we're going to talk about later on in this series is how developing leaders is largely relationship-based. And so if your lead pastor is going to make this investment, he is going to make a significant investment of time into people's lives. That most likely will mean other people either on staff or around the leadership table that you're a part of are going to have to take things off his plate. And so it's going to be a group investment of time, resources, and energy. It's going to cost you authority. At some point, as you invest leaders, you're going to have to hand over authority to other people to allow them to lead. See, you're not developing volunteers, you're investing in developing leaders. And the difference between leaders and volunteers is that leaders have authority. It will also cost you some pain. As you hand over authority to develop leaders, they are gonna mess up. And as they mess up, sometimes that pain is gonna come back to you as leaders, and you're gonna have to deal with it. You're gonna have to take that pain on your own shoulders, and that's okay. We need to view this as growing pains, not failures, not the end of the world, but growing pains. You see, our mistakes are often the best classroom for us to grow in. Listen, this is an investment that is worth it. It's one that we're called to biblically, it's one that we need to make practically, and it's one that we as churches won't regret over time. It's one that will pay off dividends as we look ahead.